Good morning friends, I welcome you all in this session. As you are aware, in previous session we were discussing about quality management, one of the important knowledge areas of project management, and we have seen several tools which can be applied to maintain quality of a product or a project. We have seen tools like, let us say, histogram, we have seen run chart, we have seen control chart, we have seen what is POK, we have seen fail safe mode, and other things also we have seen. Now, before starting the next area, which is procurement management, let me tell you a couple of things about failure mode and effect analysis, another important quality tool. It is called failure mode effect analysis, FMEA. Now, there are 2-3 points you should keep in mind whenever you go for failure mode effect analysis. We need to find out what are different possibilities of failure of a machine or of an equipment. So, try to find out what are the possible failure modes of a machine, what is the probability of occurrence of failure, and how severe that failure is. It is possible that a machine is failing, but its effect is not much severe. So, you need to know 3 things: occurrence of the failure, how severe that failure is, and how easily you can detect that failure. So, if you know all these 3 things, then you can calculate something called risk priority number. So, if there is a machine, first find out what are the possible causes of failure. Let us say failure due to, let us say, power supply, right. Let us say failure due to operator's mistake, right. Then if you know that how many times machine failed due to power supply, you know, just calculate the probability. If not probability, then you can just assign a number between 1 to 10, right. Similarly, once you know that detect what is the probability of that failure, then what are the effects of that failure, right, and how severe those effects are, right. So, you just calculate risk priority number for each failure and then assign some persons to look after those failures. So, in this way you can do failure mode effect analysis by calculating risk priority number and by assigning a person who would be looking after that particular failure, right. So, this is failure mode effect analysis. Apart from this, there is something called process capability. Process capability is something which you need to know, is the ability of the process to keep central tendency and dispersion at their required levels. When I say central tendency, it means I am talking about mean, mode and median. So, it is possible, it is good to maintain that the process stick to its central tendency. And when I say its dispersion, you can measure it through either range or standard deviation or variance, right. So, it is good to use variance as a method for measuring dispersion. So and there are different types of methods available. For example, if you want to measure central tendency of the process, then there is something called X bar chart. You can use X bar chart. For measuring variability, you can use R chart. If not R chart, then in some situations you can use S chart. It is called standard deviation chart. If not standard deviation, then you can directly use variance chart, right. So, there are different types of charts available through which you can control quality of a project or a product, right. So, now let us move on to the next important knowledge area, which is procurement management. Due to shortage of time, we will not be able to cover 3 knowledge areas, namely project integration management, scope management and communication management. Apart from these 3 areas, we have covered all remaining 7 areas, right. So, let us look at procurement management. One of the very important functions, one of the very important knowledge areas, because in a project you have got hundreds of vendors and you would be requiring thousands of materials from those vendors, and if you do not do this activity properly, then I do not think you would be able to complete project in time, within budget and having required performance level, right. So, procurement management is an important area. It is also known as sourcing. In fact, sourcing would be the appropriate word for this, because sourcing includes several things, right. It includes, for example, purchasing, it includes let us say vendor selection, it includes marketing research for raw materials and components and so on, right. So, procurement management or sourcing is to be done properly in a project. Even if you look at supply chains these days, then there are 6 important drivers. Namely, you can have, let us say, first is information, then you have got transportation, then you have got warehousing, you have got inventory, right, you have got pricing and you have got sourcing, right. So, procurement management quite an important topic, and before I start lecturing on this particular topic, the first thing which should be known to all of you is that you should look at these 5 R's. So, you should always look at right quality of the raw material component or assembly or sub assembly, right. So, right quality, right quantity, right place or right, you should get the material at right place, right. It should be available to your organization at right time, and you should select material from right source, right. So, these are 5 R's of purchasing, right. Apart from these 5 R's, you should also look at some selective inventory control tools, and there are several tools. We will not look at all those tools, but we will look at couple of important tools. So, you can classify your raw materials and components into different categories, and these categories are, the first one is ABC analysis. As I told you in one of the sessions that there are products in which the 80% cost is for 20% of the components, right. In fact, we have seen in Pareto analysis also. So, in ABC classification also, in a product you will have certain items which would be 20% in quantity, but their cost would be 80%, right. So, there is something called ABC analysis. We will see an example on ABC analysis. Then you can have items as seasonal and off seasonal items. In fact, if you look at these days, almost most of the businesses are seasonal, right. In fact, if you for example, let us say in summers you have got business of, let us say, cold drinks and ice creams and so on, right. In winters you have got some other businesses and so on. So, most of the businesses are seasonal these days, right. So, you need to procure your raw materials in according to seasonal and off seasonal, right. Now, there is something called VED analysis. You can have V stands for vital, E is for essential and D is for desirable. So, it is called vital, essential and desirable. If you look at a pen, a ballpoint pen, then the refill is the vital component, because it writes. So, vital component is valid. Essential is the place from where you hold it, right, in a pen, it is essential, and let us say cap is desirable, is not it. So, you can classify the items which you are going to purchase for your product as vital, essential and desirable items, right. You can have one more classification, it is called golf. You can have government source, ordinary source, local source or foreign source, right. So, government, local and foreign, right. It again it depends, if you are able to get material from government source having right quality, price, time, then you can go for that, right. Otherwise, look for some other source, right. So, you can have government source, local source and foreign source of getting raw materials and components, right. Then you have got fast moving, slow moving and non moving items, right. And then there is something called Hde analysis. There are some scarce items, then you have got difficult items and there are some easy to purchase items, right. So, let us say if you are getting raw materials from abroad, it is quite an, because the item is scarce in India. So, that is why you are getting it from abroad, right. So, you can have this kind of different categories, right. So, we will look at ABC analysis. I will take one example and then we will try to find out which components are of A, B and C type, right. So, we do analysis on the basis of annual consumption value, right. Okay. So, let us take this example. You are using, let us say 20 items in your organization and this is annual consumption, but before this let me tell you the classification of A, B and C, right. So, A items are those items which are having as far as volume is concerned 10 to 20% of the items, but their value is around 70 to 80%, right. B category of items are 30 to 40% and their value is 15 to 20%, right. C category of items 40 to 50, but their value is 5 to 10%. So, there are 10 to 20% items having value 70 to 80%, they would be termed as A category items, right. So, if you look at this curve, so on y axis you have got percentage of rupees value in inventory and you have got percentage of material here, right. So, if you look at this, this is the curve, and if you look at area from here to here, this is contributing is the percentage of rupees value in monetary, right. And then you can have different categories from this curve, right. We will have it in next slide. So, let us look at this example. So, you have got 20 items, the annual consumption is for first item is 4000, right, second item 600 units, right. Similarly, for 19th item 350 units and for 20th item it is 20 units. So, these are the requirements of these 20 items. Their prices are also given. So, this is 10 rupees per liter. So, its total value would be what? It is 40,000, right. Similarly, if you look at this item, you need only 20 units and the price is rupees 10 per kg. So, it would be 200 rupees, right. So, just convert all these two columns into their rupee value, right, and this is the annual consumption, right. You just multiply these two columns. So, you will get annual consumption, is not it. So, as I said 4000 into 10, 40,000, 20 into 10, 200, right. Now, after this you just rank all these items according to their consumption value. So, the highest is for this, which is 40,000. The next one is 36,000, right? It is for item number 6, right? Then the next one is 32,000, right, for item number 3. So, you just rank them according to their values, right, the annual consumption. After this, just take the cumulative of this particular column. So, 40,000, this is 40,000 plus 36,000, 76,000 plus 32,000 and so on, right. You just keep on doing this, is not it? Now, if you look at the total value, you just add this particular column, you will get a total value here, right, is not it? And when you go for, in fact, this is your total value, is not it? In fact, this is sum of this cumulative values. In fact, this is the cumulative value for item number 20, right. So, you just keep adding all these things, right. So, this comes out to be 1,47,000, right. Now, if you look at this 40,000 is 27% of this, right. Then this value is 51%, this value is 73%. So, we will say that this item number 1, 2 and 3, in fact, this 40,000 is for item number 1, right. Then 36,000 is for item number what? 6, right. So, 1, 6 and this is item number 3. So, item number 1, 6 and 3, these 3 contribute to 73% of the total value of the total consumption, right. So, we will say these 3 items are A class items, right, and they are out of 20 items, how many items are these? So, they are approximately 10 to 10%, right. So, as we have said that those items which are contributing as far as their value is 70 to 80% and their volume is between 10 to 20%. So, these items are A category items. The last couple of items would be C category items and in between you will have B class of items. So, this is an example of ABC analysis, right. Now, let us look at what is purchasing. So, it is a process of procuring materials, supplies, machine tools and services required for equipment and then maintenance and operations of the manufacturing plant. So, you need to ensure that you should have sufficient inventories to run the plant, right. Nowadays, this function is taking more and more importance. Reason, because in a product you will find that the cost of goods and services is 50 to 70%, it depends on product to product, right. So, 50 to 70% is the cost of raw materials and components. So, that is why this purchasing function is very important. So, if you can save on purchasing, then you can increase your profit, right. The other reason why this function is gaining importance is escalating cost of stock outs. Nowadays, what is happening, if you do not provide finished product to the customer in time, then they will switch over to some other product, because there are several competitors of that particular product which you are selling, right. So, your responsibility is to ensure that you make product available. If you do not make product available in market, then it would be a loss for you and it is difficult to get customers back. So, ensure that there is no stock out of finished products, because that is the product which customers would be buying, right. So, to ensure that there is no stock out taking place of finished product, you should ensure that the other inventories, for example, work in process inventory and raw materials, their stock should also be there in plant, right. Because if there is a stock out, then it would cost you a lot, right. Then higher present day cost of capital. So, you have got fixed and working capitals. It depends, its ratio is 60 to 40%, right. Again it depends on organization to organization and product to product. And most of the times around 60 to 80% working capital is locked up in inventory in the form of either raw material or work in process or finished goods, right. It is always suggested to keep inventory as low as possible. You see, inventory management is quite an interesting area. In inventory management, you have to optimize conflicting objectives, and those conflicting objectives are, the first is you don't want to invest money in inventory, right, because it's a kind of dead capital, right, it's a dead money. So, you don't want to keep money in the form of inventories. At the same time, you also want to keep inventory because you want to fulfill customers' requirements in time, right. So, there are two conflicting objectives. So, from one side you need to keep inventory, on other side you do not want to keep inventory. So, what to do? You should have a balanced approach, right. So, this is quite an interesting area, inventory management. Purchasing is not merely act of buying, it includes several activities. Market research. Purchasing department will have to look for what is happening in the market, what are different new raw materials available, who are different vendors available, what are different pricing, right, what are different exchange rates. So, you need to, the purchasing department has to be updated in terms of all those things, right. Vendor rating, you need to ensure that your vendors are rated properly and they are audited properly, right, because if something goes wrong with the final product, then it's your brand which is at stake, it's not the vendor, because nobody knows vendors, it's your organization which is whose reputation is at stake, right. So, you need to ensure that you are properly taking care of your vendors. Then standardization and variety reduction, codification, intent coding, and there are several other functions of purchasing department, right. Nowadays purchasing is becoming quite a professional activity. It is not like that you just make a phone call to vendor and he will supply material, right. It is not like that. Since we are living in globalized era, you need to act in a professional manner, and it is good to go for, there is something called techno commercial activity, and it is more of a techno commercial activity these days, right. So, when I say techno commercial activity means what? Whenever you go for purchasing of any product, then if you are going for, let us say, a global tender, or if you are going for at national level tendering process, or let us say close tendering, right. It depends on what kind of materials you are looking for, what is the value of those items and so on, right. So, look at, it is good to call vendors for discussions, right. So, you can have discussions on technical aspects first, right. You can look at, let us say, what are the specifications of products, whether it is chemical specifications, mechanical specifications, and physical specifications and so on, right. So, you should talk about all these things, right. And then if you are done with technical aspects, then go for commercial aspects, right. And nowadays whenever you go for sourcing, you should also look at green supply chain aspects or greening aspects of purchasing, rather than going for just, let us say, what is the cost of raw material, what is the delivery period, or what is the payment mode. Rather than going for these three things, it is good to go for how good that raw material is for the environment, right. So, you just look at vendors from environmental perspective, how his processes are the processes of vendors affecting environment, is vendor using environment friendly materials, is he using environment friendly colors, is the process of vendor is polluting, let us say, rivers, isn't it, or air, or is vendor polluting air quality, isn't it. So, you should look at green aspects these days, right, and then you should look at techno and commercial aspects, right. So, these are couple of things which you should keep in mind. Nowadays, whenever you buy a material from vendor, it should be win-win situation for both of you, right. It is not like that you should always suppress your vendors, because his victory and your victory will at the end of the day will fetch profit from the market, right. So, there should be win-win situation for supplier and buyer, right. So, there are a couple of objectives of scientific purchasing: procure material at competitive price, maintain continuity in supply, right. It is not that your vendor has supplied material and he has stopped for some reasons, right. So, there is something called nowadays people are talking about just in time, right. So, in just in time, you see the concept is you should get raw material and work in process items whenever you require it, right, not too late, not too early, right, because if you are getting it too early, it is a kind of wastage in inventory, right. Too late, you will not be able to make finished product, right, and you will not be able to supply in market, right. So, it should be just in time. So, for that you need to have very few vendors, few suppliers who are reliable, right. So, just in time is basically it's a technique of reduction of waste. So, it is a waste reduction technique, and inventory is a kind of waste, it should not be there in plant, right. So, and there are certain other wastes, right. For example, in fact, there are different 7 types of wastages available. So, we will not go into detail, but just in time is a process of reducing waste, or waste, it is a waste minimization technique, and for that you need to have close relationship with few suppliers, right. Then ensure production of goods and goods of better quality. In fact, these are couple of points you should keep in mind whenever you are going for purchasing, right. Purchasing department has got certain duties to perform. There are some primary duties, some secondary duties, some tertiary duties, and so on, right. So, primary duties is to look for right source, right. Then you should get material in time. So, you should place the order in time, you should follow up the order, and you should get things in time, right. Then disposal of surplus, obsolete and scrap materials, right. So, these are couple of primary duties of purchase department. There are some other duties. For example, make or buy. So, when an organization should make a product and when it should buy a product, right. So, there are several things you should look at, right. First of all, do you have capability to make that product? If you have what capability, but if total cost is more than the cost of buying from outside, then it is good to buy, right, isn't it? Now, again it depends on, there are again several things you need to keep in mind, right, because if you buy from outside, if it is cheaper than what your facilities will do, right. So, try to make product in house by in such a way that it cost is less than the cost which you are getting from outside, right. So, make or buy decision, very important decision. It also depends on what is the urgency, right. Let us say if you can make a product in house, but it takes time and you do not have time, but you will have to buy, right. So, you need to take make or buy decision, right. Capital equipment and construction purchases, these are again this is one of the secondary duties. Purchase research, as I said, purchase research is very important. You need to look at, you need to carefully monitor the entire market about the prices of raw materials, exchange rates, inflation, then the payment mode to different vendors and so on, right. And then you have got traffic and store, right. These are other optional duties, right. In fact, earlier people used to think that purchasing is something which should not be focused, because it is an activity which will not result any profit for the organization. It is a function wherein you need to always spend and spend and spend, right. So, but nowadays profit should be this purchasing should be seen as a profit center, because to increase profit by let us say 100 rupees, you need to increase sales, and the efforts which you are putting in increasing sales would be much more than saving 100 rupees in purchasing. So, you should have some skillful negotiations with the vendors. If you go for skillful negotiations, then you can save a lot in purchasing, and that is how you can make purchasing as a profit center. Purchasing and capital release. So, these are a couple of other points which you should keep in mind. Purchasing and life cycle cost, very important. You should not look at purchasing just for the time being, right. You should look at the life cycle cost of the project, right. Life cycle cost of the raw material which you are purchasing, right. Because let us say if you are purchasing a machine tool, right. So, if the machine is let us say cheaper today, but it would have very very high repair and maintenance cost, right. So, you should look at the entire life cycle of the machine or equipment which you are going to purchase, right. So, these are couple of points you should look at carefully before going for purchasing. So, with this let me stop here, and we will continue this topic in next session also. Thank you very much.